Three, two, one. Well, I usually would start off by saying, "Welcome to the show. Good evening," and tell you how humbled I am that you choose to tune in. But tonight is Saturday, and as promised, I'm trying to stay away from some of the political jargon. But with this Tyree Nichols thing, everybody's coming up and what have you, and it just has some things I need to get off my chest. So I'm just doing this. I'm doing it for myself. And if anybody tunes in, that's fine. If nobody tunes in, I'm quite fine with that as well. Um, I call this fuck out here with that bullshit. Fuck out here with the justice for Tyree bullshit. It seems again, yet again, here we go. About to put somebody's name on a t-shirt and everybody's up in arms. But I say we all culpable. We're culpable by silently standing by. We're culpable by fighting for Ukraine and ignoring the George Floyd police accountability and reform and the John Lewis Voting Act. Sherilyn C.J. Davis is the chief of police in Memphis. Black female. Black female. This could very well have been her son. Yet she got this rogue unit calling themselves Scorpions. Sounds like a gang. Sounds like some shit from West Side Story. They're going around, and the thing that gets me, this is 5 black male cops who hate themselves so much that they exchanged their culture, their black culture, for a blue shield. And I'm tired of seeing this bullshit happen. I'm just tired. Either they're the ones who's committing the crimes or they're the one who's standing idly by and allowing it to happen. We're culpable because Nancy Pelosi took a knee. She bent the knee on the rotunda floor in the U.S. Capitol wearing kente cloth, and I posted this on my page. And I felt like it was more of a photo op than it was anything else when it happened. Then I knew that it was a photo op when she allowed the George Floyd bill to just die in Capitol, to drown in that cesspool that we talk about. She did this a week after George Floyd was killed. So this was her auditioning for Speaker of the House in my mind. We're culpable for allowing her to become Speaker of the House and wasting 2 years on a January 6th investigation that they discounted and called an insurrection, when we know it was a coup attempt. She wasted 2 years and none of the chief conspirators have been held accountable. They're all free. We got some that's been charged. We've got some, the guy that put his foot on her desk, he's being charged. The guy who wore the horns, he's been charged. The little school teacher, she was charged. But yet their lives go on, and we allowed it to happen. And for 2 years, while they had a majority in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, and had Joe Biden in the White House, we did not get any type of legislation in any shape, form, or fashion to prevent this bullshit from happening again. We're culpable because the Dems, the Democrats, I call it dim because the light is on, but it's shining so dimly, so low, we're still in darkness. They wasted this 2 year majority, and we still have no accountability for what I call black and brown murder by cops. We're culpable because the Black Caucus, yet again, totally inept. We're culpable because black folks and brown folks can't come together to form a majority to get legislation passed that would help both parties. That's some bullshit. So, yeah, I call this fuck out of here with that justice for Tyre bullshit. My name is Saint Batiste. This is OMITdaLOGIC. You know what it's about. These police body cams. I've seen all these videos who say they're not going to watch and we shouldn't watch and this, that, and the other. I say we should watch. We should watch to punish ourselves for allowing this shit to happen. Another mother is without a son. Another child is without a father. And all of these things that Tyre Nichols could have become, he had to settle for being a dead martyr. The best he could hope for is his name being on a t-shirt. And when before this t-shirt can even fade colors, it'll be an afterthought. And all of those people that are outraged right now, they'll go on about their lives. It'll no longer be popular for them to raise their voice in outrage. So they'll just go on until it's one of their sons or grandsons. We should force ourselves to watch to be pissed off to the utmost of pissosity, so much so that we can't sleep at night. How can you sleep in a neighborhood when your son stands a chance of being shot either by his brother, and if so, his murder going out unsolved? But as soon as some white folks move into the neighborhood, we send a message. We put out bike paths, and we say this neighborhood is now off limits. Take that shit somewhere else. Go ahead and kill each other over there. And whether it's New Orleans, and now New Orleans is being called the new Detroit because of the murder rate. So the city I love, I stand a chance of being shot on the interstate. Why? Some people are speculating this is a serial killer. But when you turn on 48, the next 48, all you see is Shaniqua, Pookie, and Ray Ray. We don't see anything happening to prevent it. We see all of these people posturing for a camera for 15 minutes of fame. We should force ourselves to watch this to the point where we can't sleep. How can you sleep? Every time you drive to the store, you drive to the car wash, you drive to a restaurant, you just stand in front of your own house. You run a chance of being pulled over or harassed by police and becoming a statistic. I wanted to watch to see how many of the so-called body cameras of the 5 were actually turned on, or better yet, were turned off and were deemed inoperable. I wanted to watch to see who else besides those 5 punk ass cops were on scene. I'm tired of these little punk ass boys who got their lunch money took, who couldn't find a girl to date them, or who do 4 or 5 years in the military and come home and all they can become is a cop. So they hit the street with all this animosity and self-hate. And they treat the people they're supposed to be fighting for, the people that look just like them, the worst. They wouldn't dare try this with a white boy. Or better yet, a Karen. I wanted to watch to see how many other law enforcement agencies were on scene and failed to intervene. I wanted to watch to find out how many people were there and failed to administer any type of life saving medical anything. Anything. I wanted to watch to see how many of these so called public servants with a gun and a badge did nothing. I wanted to see why it took Sherilyn C.J. Davis, this female chief of police, and I keep saying female, because if every woman could treat every man with all of his faults like they want their son to be treated, we'd be halfway there. I wanted to see why it took CJ so long to fire these clowns. And finally, I wanted to watch to see how many of these complicit bystanders in uniform with a gun and a badge stood around, did nothing, and were not charged as accessories after the fact, who were not charged for failure to do something, dereliction of duty. And then I wanted to see how many of you would have the audacity after the fact, after I've been yelling about this shit week in and week out for 2 years, how many of you would become so pissed off that you would put it on your Facebook page and you would do this and you do that and you would, now you want to pick up a placard and you want to say justice for Tyre? Well, with all respect to Tyre, what about those that came before him? And better yet, what are we going to do to keep it from happening to those that come after? Because I can promise you one thing, this will not be the last time. Then I'll see all of these YouTube and TikToks and videos telling me that we should not watch because it gives us PTSD. Fuck out of here. PTSD for watching what we see on TV every night simply because it's somehow we feel like we know this person. I get my PTSD every time I get behind the wheel of a car. I don't know about you. My PTSD is triggered every time I hear a siren and I'm walking down the street or driving down the street or in a grocery store, or even standing in front of my house going to the mailbox. Lord knows if I had $1 for every time a cop has slowly followed me and I know he's running in my tag, when I drive down the street, I get a PTSD from seeing traffic cams that are taking pictures of my license plate. I get PTSD every time you people put up all these pictures of your kids, your grandkids, and so forth and so on. When I talk about my granddaughters, I purposely did not put pictures of them because I don't want them to be in a facial recognition file. So I get PTSD when I drive down the street and I see these same cams facing me and behind me. The ones in front of me are taking pictures of us, people. That's nothing but facial recognition. And then it goes into a database and it says, do, 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 do. He's cool. He's clean. Yet on all of these fake ass Facebook holidays, spouses day, daughters, love your son, love your grandchildren. You willingly put all of these pictures down there, up here, to add to the said database. That's what gives me PTSD. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, people. I really am. I have not been out my house today. I sit around here today and I try to avoid doing just what I'm doing now. I promised myself that I would take a break to give my head a chance to just relax, to not have my PTSD triggered. Because once Tyree's face is on the news and on a t shirt, there's nothing we can do for him. And that's not cold, that's the truth. If we're going to do something to honor him, then we need to come together to make sure that a George Floyd bill, I don't care what you call it police accountability. Since you don't like the word reform, let's call it accountability. Let's call it police oversight. Let's call it this shit should never happen again bill. Let's call it this shit should never happen again to another mother's son, another child's father, another woman's husband, boyfriend, significant other, a dude she used to like. Bill. Law. My 44-year-old son is gainfully employed. He drives around from state to state, flies from state to state, installing these audio visual and these kind of the same little setup that I'm on now, but things that are a whole lot more sophisticated for multi-million dollar companies and school boards and local government, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in doing that, he stopped constantly by all the local cops because multi-million dollar companies aren't just in New York. They're in Georgia, they're in Alabama, they're in Tennessee, they're in Phoenix, Arizona, and they're in all these other places that he has to go. You don't know how many times my son has called me and said, yo, dad, this cop is following me. I'm like, son, stay cool. Man, he getting on my nerve. Do not let him rattle you, son. He wants you to slow down so you have a reason to say that you're driving erratically. It happened last week. He was stopped in Georgia, 40 miles from his house. The week before that, he was not only stopped in Alabama, he was stopped on the way to Georgia. 2 weeks before that, in Tennessee. So that's my PTSD. Because I not only have to be worried about me, I have to worry about those Tyrees that I know, that are my lineage, my legacy, that follow after me. I have to worry about your son and your son and your grandson. Last week, my son, his son, and his significant other, his better half, took a much needed vacation and they drove to New Orleans to get away, to see some of his family he hadn't seen in a while. I haven't been to New Orleans in 5 years. He had a good time. He sent me pictures of my grandson performing with the street performers in Jackson Square. Did my heart good. And after having all of this good time, and this girl saying, wow, I had so much fun in New Orleans. The people are so friendly and this, that, and the other. All I could say is my prayers were answered, that you guys were delivered from the lion's den safely. And then on the way home, just as he crossed over from I-10 to 65 in Alabama, he was pulled over. He was detained. The next thing you know, there's 5 cruisers up on him. And he didn't call me. He said, Dad, I didn't call you because. And then they had the dogs. And he said, time after time after time after time again, they kept asking him, do you have any weapons? So they're no longer concerned about people carrying drugs. Now it's the interstate commerce of weapons. Or this is the excuse. Because everything else is in order. That's yet another reason. So you've got my grandson, my son, and his lady on the side of the road. Be it the dark of night or the heat of day or the cold of day, the result could still be the same. I was assaulted when I was in the Marine Corps. And just like Uncle Sam knew there was poison in the water in Camp Lejeune and covered it up for 35 years, they did nothing to help me. Just like January 6th. So when you talk about PTSD, me watching a young man getting killed, trust me, my imagination of how he got killed is much worse than the actual event. But I feel a need. I feel a responsibility to make sure that we get 5 cameras showing what was happening. But the most damning thing came from a camera that was on the building, an overhead cam, because that's the one they couldn't turn off. I don't know about you, but my PTSD stems from fighting for a country that has never fought for me or my ancestors. Be it my great grandfather, who was a slave, or my great grandfather, who was an Indian. America has never kept its promise to me. And after I went up in there and I sacrificed myself, like my uncles and my cousin and my brother, and so many others who was my family tree. This 118 Congress, I could give a shit about it. I'm not going to give Kevin McCarthy and the Trump Republicans Oxygen on my show every weekend, week out. So I decided I would talk about dating. I know I'm off on a tangent. I know I'm off on a rant, and I don't give a shit. I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this for my own well being. I'm doing it for those like me who don't need an excuse of somebody's face on a t shirt. So, for those people to tell you what I already told you, I told you. We'll put Losi in there, we would lose the house. I said that. And I said two things would happen. January 6th would come to a screeching halt and they would go after Biden. And everything that he tried to do, they would try to undo. The only thing standing in their way is we still got a slim, whatever you call it, majority in the upper house called the Senate. So now I'm being forced to stand on this cyber soapbox yet again to wake up these fair weather protests who feel it's okay now to be angry. Because the media gave you yeah, go ahead, be angry. We need you all to shout in unison, justice for Tyre. But don't watch the videos because we don't want you to be upset. Fuck out of here. To the gay community, pardon my disrespect by not using all of the alphabet that apply to the gay community, but just sum it up to this. I want to see you fight just as hard for this as you fight for issues that you feel are specific to your community. To the Jewish community, again, I want to see you fight just as hard for this and issues like this, police accountability that threaten the lives, that take the lives of young black and brown men and women. As you fought Kanye when he had the audacity to speak what was going on with him. To my women in the female community, I want to see you fight just as hard as you did when you wanted to see Nancy Pelosi become the first female Speaker of the House. I want to see you fight just as hard when the media tells you that this is a woman issue and you don your shield and your sword and you go to the mattresses with everything that you got. To all the sororities and fraternities, I want to see you fight just as hard for this as you did, as you fought for Kamala. If I step on your toes, if I piss you off, so be it. Where's the lie? So that's all I got. I'm done. With this, I'm going to say this. To all the entertainers, the athletes, I dare you. Your Floyd Mayweather who wants to stand up and talk about you being the greatest, I dare you to stand up and fight for this. You're no longer fighting, so you got nothing to lose. I dare you to stand up and fight for this. To those people in Hollywood, the Barbra Streisands and those who fought for Nancy Pelosi, I dare you to fight for this. To the Black caucuses and everybody else, I dare you to fight just as hard. To the Republicans who fought their ass off to get McCarthy, and to McCarthy who sold his soul to become Speaker of the House, let's see you fight that hard for something like this. police accountability. And until you do, all of aforementioned people, until you do that, fuck out of here with that bullshit. Justice for Tyre Nichols.